Vikrant Reddy with Right on Crime is with us. Vikrant, thanks so much for coming on the program, sir.
Yeah, sure. It's great to be on this evening.
Yeah, it's great having you back. Now, I know that you all just put out a study here, two different approaches to corrections policy, taking a look at Illinois versus Texas. You know, obviously, the news has been full of these stories of the out-of-control crime in Chicago. Mayor Rahm Emanuel has been reduced to asking gang members to be polite and only attack each other in alleyways. You know, it certainly seems, Vikram, like crime is a growing problem in Chicago, and the numbers are a little bit different in Texas. Crime's going down in that state?
Yeah, it is. Now, you know, in all fairness, crime is going down across the country. It has been for several years now. But I think it's notable that whenever you compare different states to the national average, Texas is far outpacing everyone else. And Illinois is it's a sort of a trickle downward in crime. It's discouraging, frankly. Illinois could be doing a lot better. I mean, it's going down by, you know, modest percentage points, whereas in Texas we had an 8.3% drop in property crime last year and a 9.3% drop in violent crime.
Wow. All right. So, I mean, this is a really simple question, and I know that the you know a really concise answer would take a couple of hours, but what is Texas doing that Illinois is not, and what is Texas doing that Illinois can?
Well, it's a little counterintuitive, but it makes a lot of sense and it works. What we're doing is we are reorienting the limited resources we have. We recognize that, you know, you've got limited resources as a state, and we're putting them into putting real teeth into our parole programs, making sure that offenders are being held accountable, that, you know, they have to report regularly, that they have to abide by the terms of their probation, have to stay clean. They go into drug courts and things like that to get real help.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you go to a place like Illinois, they're just throwing folks into prison. The reason they're throwing folks into prison is because Illinois is a union-dominated state, and the prison guard unions just dominate the state, and they don't want money diverted into things like probation and parole. They just want to lock more and more people up. Now, of course, it makes a lot of sense to lock people up whenever they're murderers and they're rapists, but whenever you talk about low-level offenders, it makes a lot more sense to find alternative ways to sanction these folks, because you throw them into prison, frequently they're going to hang out with actual murderers and rapists and come out even worse than they started. But I don't think that the unions in Illinois particularly care about that because their jobs are preserved. In Texas, which is a right-to-work state where you know, many of the prisons are private, frankly, we don't have those kinds of problems, and there's been a lot of political will to do the right things with the money that we have. And I think we started doing this really in 2007, a little bit in 2005. It was an explicit decision by the legislature not to build any more prisons, to live with the means. And now years have gone by, and we're seeing the results.
You know, it's fascinating, Vikrant, because we were just talking. You know, every night we have a feature here called the Deal of the Day, where we take a look at a case where somebody is out and probably should have been behind bars when a crime was committed. And, you know, we've lately been seeing, you know, in California with the passage of AB 109, you know, people who have been released early because the system is so messed up that they don't have the money to keep these people in prison anymore. And there was a case of a guy who's now been charged with attempted murder. He was put out on early release in February of this year, picked up for violating. Now, you talk about strengthening the parole system. This is where it looked like California failed. 3 times this guy violated his parole. 3 times prosecutors said he's not registering as a parolee, so we don't know where he is. Let's keep him in jail let's send him back for 180 days so he kind of gets the message that you got to do this. And 3 different times the judge said, nah, we're just going to let him out again. And, you know, so it was basically catch and release within that parole system, which I've got to think is very damaging to the idea of, you know, respect for law. If you break the law and nothing happens, you're going to break the law again, aren't you?
Yo, you are completely. In fact, here's a good way to think about this. Suppose somebody owns a puppy. Suppose the puppy messes on the floor. Then you say to the puppy, don't do that again. He does it a second time. You say, don't do it again. He does the third time, and you just keep telling the dog, don't do it. But you don't actually punish the dog. You don't set it aside in a crate or do anything like that. You just sort of say it. And then come about the 11th or 12th time when the dog does it, you say, okay, I'm tired of this, and you shoot the dog and bury him in the backyard. Or you lock him up in a crate for 180 days, and you say, oh, these dogs just never learn. Well, I mean, of course they don't learn. You weren't doing anything to teach them. You didn't sanction them from the beginning. I mean, this goes beyond criminal justice policy. It's basic pet owning or parenting. The second somebody violates, you tell them, look, you're going to jail. You're not going forever, but we're going to lock you up. You know what they do in Hawaii? They say we're going to lock you up for the weekend. And it's a swift and certain sanction. People respond really well when they know there is not this tenuous punishment that could come, 3 or 4 years down the line. It's a punishment that comes Saturday.
Right.
You're not going out. You're getting locked up. And they've got an 80% success rate with a program they've got for their probation system called the Hope Court. This is what they do. The judge brings these people in. Hawaii, they have a big meth problem. So he'll bring in these people with, they've caught using meth or some other substance at a party. The judge will say to them, listen, I'm going to let you go. You're going to be able to provide for your family. You're going to be able to maintain a job, be a productive member of society. But I will call you randomly, and you will have to come here and take a drug test. You never know when that call is coming. And if you do not pass the drug test, that's it. Your weekend's gone. And people respond, like I said, an 80% success rate. But you're right, the system in California where the judge lets someone go 3 times before finally locking them up for 180 days, I don't really see that as being a productive solution.
Well, he didn't even lock him up for 180 days. He didn't get locked up until he got charged with attempted murder. That's the problem here. But I think you're absolutely right, Vikram. A real sentence that is going to be imposed, even if it's a relatively light sentence, is going to have more of an impact of a theoretical harsh sentence that the criminal will never see.
Right.
And yet you've got guys like Mayor Bloomberg, who went to Albany, New York a couple of years ago and said, we've got to increase the penalties for illegal possession of a firearm. It has to be a mandatory 3.5-year prison sentence. And less than half of the people who are prosecuted and found guilty of that crime in New York City get that sentence. You still have people walking away with parole.
Right.
So, consistency seems to matter.
Oh, I think so. I mean, this is what people respond to. We just I wrote this op-ed recently. I discovered this very old Italian philosopher. His name was Cesare Beccaria.
Oh, yeah.
And okay, so you're familiar with Beccaria.
I am.
So was Thomas Jefferson. If you go to the Jefferson Library, donated to the Library of Congress, you find a copy of Beccaria. He had all these wonderful essays that he wrote on crime and punishment, and they influenced the founding fathers. And you can read this in many of their essays and their writings. They'll refer back to him. And one of the things that Beccaria talked about was the swiftness and certainness of punishment. He said, in so many ways, it's more important that the punishment be swift and certain than that it be intense. The intensity of it is less significant. It just has to come immediately. I think that's such a simple lesson that for some reason our political leaders seem to keep ignoring.
I think you're right. Well, listen, Vikram, thank you again, sir, for coming on the program. If folks want to see more about this report from Right on Crime, where can they find it?
Oh, well, they should go to rightoncrime.com. They can take a look at our blog. They can read some of the publications we've got up. But most importantly, I'd love for people to take a look at our statement of principles, which has been endorsed by a lot of very strong conservative leaders. People have been very strong on Second Amendment issues, frankly. People like Newt Gingrich, Jeb Bush, Grover Norquist, Bill Bennett, Ed Meese. They've all signed on to our statement of principles and our framework for thinking about crime.
All right. Well, Vikram, again, thanks for coming on the program, sir. Look forward to doing this again soon.
I can't wait. Thank you.